at the crossroad, a huge celebrity. I was standing at the crossroad, Zoom room came for me. I said, Damon, have mercy. Don't you infect me, please.
Hello everyone, we're here with Michael Donovan to record a commentary track for the episode Wizards, Warriors, and a word from our sponsor. Michael, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
That's great, thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, lots of people are excited to hear from you, I think. Would you mind, I think everyone kind of knows who you are, but could you tell me a little bit about yourself and your connection with ReBoot and other things that you're doing?
Well, I mean, I've done a lot of different things over the years. As far as ReBoot, it was one of the first animated series that we worked on. It's done, of course, in Vancouver. And just very briefly, I don't know how many people know about how I got the role of Fong and Mike the TV. Did you want me to talk about a little of that?
Definitely.
Okay. When I first auditioned for the show ReBoot, basically I came in and auditioned for as many things as I could, Hack and Slash and Mike the TV and Fong and whatever. And I was told when I auditioned for Fong that no, they wanted to get a real Chinese or Japanese Asian person to do that role. So I went, yeah, okay, well, no problem. I understand that. So I left that one aside, and I auditioned for Mike the TV and a few other characters, as I mentioned. Then when I actually got a callback, which is when they want to see you again to come in, I thought, okay, well, because I had the Mike the TV audition that I had done, and I felt pretty good about it, I reworked the script because the script was kind of basic. So I thought, well, here's a TV that's being, like, the channels were changing. So I think I sung the theme from The Love Boat. I had, I did a bunch of, I did a soap opera. I did a bunch of different, bits and pieces. And so when I showed up for the audition, I looked at the thing that it said that I was coming back for, and I looked on the schedule, and it said Fong.
Oh no!
And I went, yeah, and I went, okay.
That's not what I prepared for.
Yeah, I didn't do Fong, and they said, well, we had some Asian people that came in, and they really didn't like any of the stuff that they heard. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go ahead and read the original audition sides that they had. And when I did that, it was like,
yes, my son, you are very, very fortunate to be here.
So I did that, that whole shtick. And then they said, okay, well, thank you for coming in. I said, well, listen, I've got this Mike the TV. And they go, well, we liked your original Mike the TV, but, it was whatever. So I said, well, I prepared a bunch of stuff for it. So I actually got to do it. I could hear them in the other room killing themselves laughing.
Nice.
So it was like, dices, slices, copies, cuts, paste, and even formats julienne fries. But wait, act now, and we'll put you the handy Log-O-Matic absolutely free for only $99.99.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so anyway, so I did a whole bunch of things like that. And then when we actually got into the series, it was kind of weird that they did this. Usually they don't do this. When we were actually recording the series, I think it was, I don't forget what episode it was, they said, we need this guy named Cecil. And he is the snotty waiter in Dot's Diner. Well, there was two guys that auditioned in the room, and that's why they don't usually do it, because it's like, okay, yeah, you'll steal from one of the other guys. Anyway, so we all went around the room, and because they were British people that were doing ReBoot at the time, it was Limelight that had come to Vancouver and done mainframe entertainment. I thought I'll go. There was one of their guys. I think it was the guy who originally did Hack. His name was Phil Hayes, and he went British. He went with a sort of a snotty kind of a down. And I thought, you know what? The British hate the French.
So I'm going to go with the snotty French wetter.
You know, it was sort of a rip-off of a Monty Python, thing that I heard millions of years ago.
And they loved it.
And that's the way I went, because they thought, oh, I love to hate this guy.
Yes,
So
yes.
So it became kind of a funny bit. And then they said, well, whenever we need to cut anything from the show, we'll just cut Cecil's.
We'll cut Cecil's lines. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Cecil. Yeah.
That's awesome. I gotta say, it's very cool to have all these characters' voices blasted into my ears like this. From Fong to Mike to Cecil or Cecil. You basically, could have wound up voicing the entire cast of characters for ReBoot then, eh? You went in with all these characters in mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you do, right? You throw as much spaghetti at the wall and something's going to stick.
Definitely.
So,
a lot of stuff stuck.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate. The other one that I think I had one word. Did you remember Al?
Yes. Who doesn't remember Al?
Al's way, and Gary Chalk did the voice of Al's waiter. It's like, Al, he was like and I'd always be like, what? What? So that was my only. I think I only had one line. So
just kind of hearing you do that now, and it sounds exactly like the what from the TV show. Was it you like recording that same line over and over and over again, or
no? I think each time we did it, they just they wanted to record it at the time, so we didn't just sample. It was
That's great. That's amazing. Yeah. I believe that too, because it sounded just when you did it just now. It sounded exactly like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do it the same. I'm going to do it the same every time.
Sure, but
there's only one word, so it's what? Yeah. So.
Shall we get to the episode?
Yeah, and it's actually one of my favorite episodes, just because of Mike the TV being all the way through it. It was fun, and I will say that I did not direct this episode. If I'm not mistaken, this episode was, I think, and it's been so long now, I think it was Andrea Romano that, and she did all the Warner Brothers stuff, and she was up in Vancouver. She was the original director, and then it was Dick Zondag was the new director that came in, and then ultimately I got the nod for being the voice director on it.
Excellent. So you probably started like partway through season 2, is that correct?
Yeah, and actually I think it was towards the end of season 1 that I started directing the voices. And basically it was easy enough to do, because when I was in the on the other side of the glass, I would do my lines for the actors to feed off of in the studio, and then all I do is go in the studio and record my stuff, knowing how I directed the actors. So
interesting.
So it wasn't hard.
And you said this is your favorite episode. This is a favorite episode for a lot of people, and we'll get into that in the Q&A afterwards. But
sure.
For now, let's get started here.
ReBoot will return after these messages. We now return to ReBoot.
Ready on your end?
I certainly am.
All right, and to everyone listening, we're going to start the playback in 3, 2, 1.
I come from the net, through systems, peoples, and cities, to this place, mainframe. My format, Guardian, to mend and defend, to defend my newfound friends, their hopes and dreams, to defend them from their enemies.
Seeing this opening here, I know a couple people were asking for like a Mike the TV rendition or a Fong rendition of the, I come from the net speech. Is that something you're willing to do for us?
I come from the net. Through systems.
I can't even remember the dialogue. It's been way too long.
I come from the net, from systems, peoples, and cities, to this place.
To this place, mainframe.
My format?
Oh, right.
My format, Guardian.
Fong is a guardian now too. I like that. He'd be a very good guardian.
So Bob is all freaked out because he's hiding from Mike the TV.
I gotta say, I like Bob's sofa here. It's very colorful.
Yeah, it is.
You know, if Mike weren't there, it'd probably be the loudest thing in this scene.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny. Oh, here he shows up.
There he goes. So simple, so innocent.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to watch characters like this. They're so, you know, animated and so energetic.
Yeah. I actually nearly got a chance to get the television that was sitting in Mainframe Entertainment.
No kidding.
Chris Bruff. He says, "Hey, it's just sitting in a warehouse. If you want to, if you want it, it's yours." It's what.
Wow.
This is the one. This is the part I think that's it's bucket o nothing. Know your friends, enjoy and all you perfect strangers. It's absolutely nothing. Free for only $99.99.
I love that.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the one. I'm really. Oh my gosh, so cool to hear that. I'm really trying to like suppress my laughter as I listen to this because I want your voice to come through clear here.
Yeah,
so cool.
That's funny. And it's funny because there's a character. For some of the younger folks, they wouldn't know Phil Silvers.
Phil Silvers.
Yeah, Phil Silvers was a guy who sort of sounded. He was kind of like this, you know. It was he just had this kind of way about him, and a lot of the stuff that I borrowed was from Mike the TV was borrowed from him.
I see.
Yeah. He was. There was a show that we did called Sonic the Hedgehog, and
yes,
there was
I remember that well.
Yeah, and there was a character on there called Wes Weasley.
Oh yes, that's right. That was you, wasn't it? I just realized that.
And he had that voice because he was a salesman, you know. Hey,
yes.
you gotta have that looked at, you know.
Yes.
And that's Phil Silvers. That was when we listened to Phil Silvers, it really wasn't even close to him. When I listened to Phil Silvers, it was my impersonation of Phil Silvers. Oh yeah, this is when Mike the
Mighty Warrior.
Yeah. So I had a lot of freedom to do different characters and whatever. So
yeah, it must have been like they kind of give you free reign to do what you wanted to do, eh?
Well, yeah. As far as the voices, I could pretty much choose. The biggest thing is the script. I very rarely was. We very rarely went off script. So I mean, the dialogue was there. So yeah. So
I know. I think I remember hearing Gavin saying before, or Phil perhaps saying before, that they'd let you guys record the script, but they also wanted to kind of nurture that creativity in you actors as well. So they would ask for some ad-libbing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was really never any good at ad-libbing.
Really?
I was just never really into going off as much as that. But the voices, as far as the voice prints and whatever, I had pretty much free reign to do what I wanted, which was great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I got to say, like, even today, like rewatching, having rewatched multiple times, ReBoot and then other things, like you mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog, for example, or stuff that you've done in Star Wars, for example, like coming back to it time and time again. It's only, how can I say? It's like, I don't realize it's you at first. You just have so many different voices.
See this voice here?
Yes.
This character? Yeah, that's me.
That's you too. I was really wondering about who that was. That's you.
Yeah, it's like something all in one in all. That's the key.
Very interesting.
And then they pitched it down.
Very cool. I was going to ask you about that too. So you're really at the heart of this show. You've done so.
Well, it was And it's funny because I remember when this show first came out, we because at the time the animation was getting better and better, and the guys at Mainframe were getting more and more into, you know. So when you look at this scene coming up here, with I remember even watching this on television and going, "Oh crap! Have they ever got like in here with all the lighting?"
Yes.
You know, with the lighting and you know the flickering and
Yes.
I just thought, man, this is unbelievable. And of course, now you look at it and it's kind of a little cheesy. You
It's
know,
a little cheesy, but
it's
you
not
know,
it's not as wonderful as the animation now.
sure.
But,
I mean,
you know,
of
but
course.
for the time,
Definitely.
yeah.
And you know, I always argue that it really has held up, you know, surprisingly well. I say surprisingly just because it's 25 years old now, but like
Right.
you know,
I mean, look at this. It's like, you know, that's pretty cool.
it is very cool. The lighting there with Dot's staff that she has.
Yeah. It was great. But I remember remarking on that, saying, "Wow, you know, these guys have gotten so, you know, incredible."
WoW was the word that I believe a lot of people chose when watching this show back in the 90s. First time anything like this had ever come out, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it was pretty amazing.
Mike is the warrior. He's the warrior of the bunch. But he's got such a tenuous connection to reality, you know? Like anytime he's interacting with everyone else, it's very like he's just using television quotes to respond to everyone, you know?
That's right. Yeah. It's it was too much. It was way too much fun to record these.
Now, just a couple steps back here, Mike says, "Have no fear, I will save you," or something. That's Dudley Do-Right, I think. Eh?
Yeah, it was, you know, "Have no fear, I'll save you."
That's the one.
Yeah, it's I just like. Yeah. He was, and the thing about Mike the TV is he's very innocent and hapless. He didn't really, you know, he wasn't out to hurt anybody. He was just having fun.
Yeah, he's having fun. You know, the only thing that he's really concerned about in terms of himself is his career. He kind of mentions throughout the series, "Think of my career," you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But otherwise, he's really just kind of happy-go-lucky. He just wants to kind of make people smile, you know.
Oh yeah, no, that was the whole purpose of the television set. It was switching it up to, and that's why when I did the audition, that was the whole idea behind the changing the channels. I'm thinking, well, here's a character that if it's changing channels, and I wish I had the original audition. I might have it somewhere on a cassette, an old cassette.
If you do, that needs to be shared with everyone.
Yeah, I will see if I can find it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's because I remember looking for it before and not being able to find it, and thinking because I think I have it somewhere.
Something like that doesn't just get thrown away, right? It's got to be somewhere.
Yeah, it's and if I do, I definitely will. I'll send it to you, and you can post it somewhere.
Definitely, yes, that would be excellent.
Yeah, because it was. I remember the audition was. I had a lot of fun doing it. So, all right, this is when Dot was making these guys go smaller and smaller, and then they step on them.
Let's get going. This way. I think it's this one.
So there's a scene coming up. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but where I think it's when the spider comes down from the ceiling, right?
Oh, right.
And Mike has this like blood-curdling scream.
Yeah, that was Kathleen Barr.
That was Kathleen Barr, hey?
Yeah, she screamed horrifically because I mean I'm going, you know, if I scream, it's not going to sound right. I mean, I can do a girly scream.
Sure.
You know,
I'd like to hear that girly scream.
Yeah. it's
That's very good.
but it wasn't what we needed for the show, and that had to be a real total scream that actually you think for a minute it might be Dot,
Yes.
but we turn and we see it's Mike.
Yes, that's right.
And that was the joke, because so if I did it, it wouldn't have sounded as it wouldn't have sounded as good.
I remember watching this as a kid, like just thinking, who the heck is that screaming? That's like, oh my gosh, it's
Right.
Mike. Here he is right now.
So that was Kathleen Barr, who does
Very
the
good.
voice of Dot. Yeah.
She's very talented too.
Yeah. Oh, she's amazing. So.
Speaking of screams, and I ask you this because of some of the screams that you did on the show, and also you being the voice director. Some of the screams are really visceral in ReBoot, like the scream that Kathleen Barr did here, stuff that Scott McNeil did later, and like Cecil, I seem to remember, and Fong in later episodes when like he's going at it with Megabyte. There are these really like visceral screams. Like, how do you kind of elicit that from an actor?
Well, it's funny because as a voice actor, you always want to protect the the equipment and everything. So we had really good engineers. They could make sure that the volume was, we didn't overdo it and whatever. And they say, oh no, you just go ahead and scream. You have to be able to scream. So it sounds real. Otherwise, it's like,
Right. Yes.
You don't want that. It has to be real.
Yes. It just sounds like that leaked trailer for The Mummy that came out on YouTube with Tom Cruise flying around the plane like,
Yeah, exactly. It has to be like right from the innards.
Is there, speaking of protecting the equipment, you probably want to protect your own voice in doing something like that too. Is there a way to kind of warm yourself up to get a scream like that's not going to damage your own vocal cords?
Well, it's funny because I've never really had any problem with like anything really weird as far as voice, and I've never had to warm up my voice. We did. I don't know if you know. I was Conan the Adventurer.
Yes.
For 65 episodes, and when we were doing that, he was all in here.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So and I could do that all day. I didn't. So it's just what your voice will allow you to do.
Sure.
I never had any real problems with that kind of stuff. So no, we didn't. I mean, I can't speak for everyone else, but we didn't. I didn't have to warm up my voice or anything.
How about that, eh?
So I was fortunate. Yeah. So
there's some really scary monsters in this episode. This centipede thing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Nightmare material.
It was too funny. Yeah, I haven't seen this for. You mentioned that maybe if I wanted to watch the episode, it's like they're in a box somewhere. Who knows where? So.
I've seen you at panels and stuff too, and you seem to remember the episode like really well. I mean,
yeah. Well, this particular episode too is, and rightly so, just because of the the fact that Mike the TV was all the way through it. So
sure.
But what a great cast of actors.
Yes, it really was like a really good combination of people and talent.
Yeah,
I really like
and the animators were astonishing.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Yeah, it was a real, and I remember talking to, I think it was I don't know if it was Phil, it might have been Gavin. He was telling me that they were like right to the last little bit, like right to the deadline of getting these shows recorded.
Yes.
And maybe you've heard the same things. It was like they were going so amazingly close to the time that they had to be in at ABC, because that's who was the I think when this first came out, it was on ABC.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and so they were like just right to the wire and we were recording the night before, kind of.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's a little too close for. I wouldn't want to be under those time constraints.
My goodness, no. I mean, I've heard stories about people having to like fly the episodes down to LA to get it in on time.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was scary.
We're done for. All right, Mike. I don't believe it. He's a genius.
Of course, the light. Mike.
And then they'd have to do the I forget what it is now.
When they're rendering it.
Rendering, that's the word I was looking for.
All right.
So yeah, when they were doing that, they'd do it overnight, and then they would ship it off the next day, or
Right.
take it down by airplane or whatever.
Now, speaking of, like, when you did an episode, when you recorded the voice work for an episode, did you just do the episode and you finished that and it was done, or would they have you come back once in a while to kind of re-record lines or add something new?
This guy's really starting to bother me.
Oh, that's a good question. If we did have any pickups, it would be done on the next show that we recorded.
Okay.
Because then they would get the pickups for free. Yeah, so I mean, it's all about it. But because these shows were so tight, I don't remember doing a lot of pickups.
Yeah.
One in all. That's the key.
I really
Yeah.
like this line, by the way, here, Mike, before the commercial break. Be plunged into eternal bottomlessness.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That was really fun. I like that. He talks about the bad monster movie network, too. I like that. Just the delivery of these lines. It's so great. It's so, you never get bored watching it because it's up and down the whole way through, all these different kinds of voices. Mike turns his head, there's another camera angle, and then like an entirely different voice coming at you. It's always
like I said, we had way too much fun doing especially this character, just because he was able to change so much, and not necessarily annoyingly, just he's having fun.
Yeah, it really makes me think a lot of Robin Williams and the stuff they did it on Aladdin with the genie.
Right.
Change so quickly like that, right? It's very cool.
Yeah, just being able to have fun. That was the. So like I said, I was very fortunate to be able to be in this series. Like I said, it was one of the first animated. Actually, the first animated series that was CG.
Yeah. Very remarkable.
So you're kind of going, wow, that's pretty amazing to me. And the guys at Limelight, they're the guys who did Money for Nothing.
Yes.
And they also did, I think, Let's Get Rocked, which, if you remember that, which is what was that? Let's Get Rocked by. I can't remember the group.
Don't ask me who it is, but I remember the video for it.
Yeah, and the guy and the kid with the hat
looks a lot like Enzo, right?
Exactly, and that's where they took it from.
I was wondering about that. I figured there has to be some connection. The Love Hospital.
Yeah. Now, there was one question that was. Well, we'll get into it later, I guess. There was one of the questions where they wondered who did the voice of.
Who was it now?
I can't remember which one it was.
Someone from this episode.
Yeah, well, it was. I think on that Love Hospital, it was like the Love Hospital.
Yeah, and then there's a guy who says your prescription for romance. I think. Right?
Yeah.
Was that you also?
That was me also.
That's nice. I like that Bynum voice.
Yeah, your prescription for romance.
It's very cute.
I like the way you said that.
All these little Bynums, and it must have been you too. Like I remember in season 3, there's a shot where the Took Bynum he's just kind of left behind by the crowd, and you can suddenly hear what he's saying. He's like, "The Pretender," in this really like pathetic, tiny little voice. Very
well,
cute.
it's funny. There, one of the episodes was let's see, it was Talent Night.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was may have been episode 2. I can't remember, but we had way too much fun on there because there was shots of where what's his name, William Shatner.
Yes.
Did a
Yes.
thing. It was like, pack my bag, pre-flight, 0 hour, 9 a.m.
I memorized that as a kid, by the way.
Yeah, and that was from the Sci-Fi Awards that was in L.A. It was a bit of a thing. That's when Andrea Romano, she showed us the video
Oh yeah.
of William Shatner. I don't know if you've seen that video, but it
I
was
don't
like,
think I have. No.
oh, people in the audience were going, I mean, it's William Shatner sitting on stage, smoking a cigarette, like single spotlight, and he's like, pack my bags, pre-flight, 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm going to be high as a kite by then. And it was like this really bad interpretation. And
That's so funny.
people were like, is he serious? Is he being serious? What's going on?
He's so good at those kind of bad, you know, he released albums of like terrible, like, you know, on purpose, right? I'm sure he's doing it on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Rocket Man and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's very cool.
Anyway.
I like how here the Stanley Cup chalice that Mike holds up turns into a plunger.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So now I think he's wrapping it up here. He's going, he's kooky, he's silly.
In a dungeon-like adventure game.
Right.
And then the final, Mike the TV, just full throttle.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was like, we all know we love you, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. And we all really do love Mike, you know? He's like, he's a beloved ReBoot character.
Yeah. And then he fades to black.
Fades to black. Perfect ending. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, Zondag Entertainment. That was Dick Zondag. Was the so yeah. So in this episode, it was Andrea Romano. I remember that.
Okay. And they're all up in Vancouver with you folks, right?
Yeah. She came up to, and it was funny because I think we were recording. I don't know if it was this show or another show, but she could not get warm because I mean she was in Vancouver. And
right.
It was yeah. So she's got this big heavy overcoat on and gloves. Like she's wearing gloves. It's the middle of, I don't know. It's the middle of June or July or something. And she's like, I just can't get warm. So
she's not used to the Canadian weather.
Yeah, that was what it was. It was like, you know, of course we're all outside, you know, enjoying the summer and the you know, oh, we got shorts on and whatever. So.
ReBoot will return after these messages. We now return to ReBoot.
Let's get into the Q&A here. I've collected a lot of questions from everybody. I sent you, first of all, some photos from Raquel about her cosplay experience doing the 4 main characters of this episode and Mike the TV, which she built. Did you get a chance to look at those?
I did. I was very impressed. It's like, oh man, what a lot of work.
Mike the TV, its screen lights up and everything.
Yeah, it looks great. And it's funny because when I looked at the people here, they look very much like the characters. Where was this?
As I understand it, she and they have done this cosplay in more than one location.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, the costumes itself are just, it's amazing.
Well, you know, she says that people were losing their minds over the Mike the TV that she built. You know, they would see the whole group of them together and like immediately understand, oh my gosh, that's ReBoot. And then they would see the mic. And it would just be like the entire event, the entire time that they were there, they were constantly like getting thrown like lines from the show, 99, 99, 99 and everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember we did I don't usually go to conventions and different things, but because there was one held in Vancouver, this is a while back now, that I thought, okay, well, you know, Gavin's going to be there and the cast is going to be there. I'll definitely show up. And I did that whole shtick, which is Dyson's license, copies, cuts, paste, and even formats julienne fries. But we're act now, and we'll port you the handy logomatic absolutely free for only. And I stopped.
Yes.
And everybody in the room went 99, 99. And I was actually quite surprised.
Yeah, no, everybody knows that. And you know what? I've seen this video on YouTube as well. And it's great. It's great to see that kind of, everybody remembers that character and those lines. It's such a beloved piece of reboot history right there.
Yeah, well, it was fun. It was fun. And I think it was one of the questions. It's like, what is 99, 99, 99? It's like,
yes.
well, in Mike's world, that meant something.
It meant something.
Right. It's not 9,999. It's, it's 99, 99, 99. It's it's a nonsensical number. So
I have to tell you, because fans have dissected this to no end, trying to figure out, is this a currency in our world, or is it some sort of like computer code thing or something like that?
Right. No, it just was something silly. That's like I remember doing an episode of ReBoot. They actually, I think it may have even been Talent Night.
Talent Night, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
There was a line in there where it was take my wife. It actually
yes.
said take my wife, please. But it was done as a fax. A fax code, and we got explained it to us by the animators, and they said basically the fax tones were put in, and if somebody wanted to feed that into their fax machine, it would print out "Take my wife, please." And I was like, "Oh, come on, really? Are you serious? That's crazy."
The things, though. I mean, I really do like that. That's what the joke was. But watching that as a kid, and like the way that you act out all those ones and zeros, and like then the animation on top of that,
right. Yeah.
And then also the
101, 1011,
exactly.
1011, 101, 1011.
And the way that the characters react to it, like, please, there's going to be children in the audience. Like, I just wonder, what is that joke? I have to know what that. It's got to be like the dirtiest joke ever.
Yeah. It was too fun, and we had to do it. I had to do it right because it's a binary code, which translated would have meant something. But if I screwed it up, because I think I did it a couple times.
Yeah, you got to have all those ones and zeros in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. There was another episode that we did. It was the one where Mike the TV sings.
Crossroads, I was standing at the crossroads.
Right. That's the one. I got a call from Ian Pearson. All of a sudden, I got a phone call out of the blue, and he says, "Yeah, Michael. Listen, can Mike the TV sing?" And I said, "What? What do you mean? Like now? Like for your
through the phone
for your pleasure?" No, man. We have this cross notes. Yeah, and he said, "We have this bit where we're going to get Mike the TV to sing the intro to the show." So I can sing as the character. I don't like singing for real because I get a little self-conscious, but I said as the character I can so we recorded that twice. They took the second take that I did right through. And it was because I wanted to do it again. I wanted to keep going because I was having way too much fun. And they're going, no, we got it. No problem. We got it. It's in the can, It's like, yeah, but I want to do another one.
I want to do it again. It's such a fun song. I got to say, and this is a little bit weird, perhaps. I sing that as a lullaby to my kids sometimes. Like sometimes it's just so catchy. It just kind of gets in my head once in a while. Rocking them.
Crossroads,
celebrity.
And then if you notice that part of it, where he says, "I have heard the word. It's so high you can't get over it.
Yes.
That you can't get under it."
Yes.
And I went quite deep with it. It's so wide you can't get around it. It's in bold caps too.
Yeah, I love that line.
Yeah.
It's just so animated all the way through, and it makes me so happy too that we had this character throughout the entire series. Like it wasn't just Wizards Warriors,
right?
Just Talent Night in season 1. He got carried through the entire series.
It was a cool character, and where Fong was a little more,
yes, my son. there is lots of things to do at this time. I'm sorry, Dot, but no, hexadecimal has caused this problem over here.
So and where he was a little more straight, Mike the TV could have a lot more fun. Yeah.
You had that range on the show, didn't you? You had like the crazy, wacky Mike with all his impersonations, and then the very centered Fong.
Right. So I had the opportunity to do a lot of things on that show.
Was there, who did you like to work with when you were there? I mean, you probably enjoyed working with everyone, but like, is there any kind of standout memory that you have of working with the cast?
Well, it's funny because Gary Chalk, who did the voice of, I think it was Hack, I believe.
Slash. Might have been Slash.
Was he Slash? Okay. Gary Chalk and I worked together before on a show called Captain N.
Ah, yes.
The Game Master.
Yes, the Game Master.
And he was King Hippo, and I was the Eggplant Wizard.
Yes.
So, it was like,
well, I didn't do it. It was all his fault.
Use yourself, you pig. And so I knew Gary from before, and when he got in the show, it was like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. I met Michael Benyer on this series, but it was a real good cast, and I've known these people now for going on, hard to believe, I think it's just close to 30.
This year, in fact, is the 25th anniversary.
This is the 25th anniversary
since it aired.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Time goes by when you're having fun.
And speaking of the Game Master, that's where the voice for Mr. Christopher came, I think, from the Software Pirates, right? That kind of lippy, kind of like, oh dear,
well, that was
yeah, it was like 14% on our schedule. Total value less expenses currently at 18,000 plus.
18,000 plus, love that.
Yeah, that was and then of course. Captain Capacitor.
Yes, Long John Baldry.
Long John Baldry, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Long John Baldry.
It's interesting, you guys worked on, speaking of Sonic the Hedgehog, you and these...
Yeah,
Phil Hayes
Gary
too.
Chalk.
Yeah.
Gary Chalk was in there, Phil Hayes. And Phil Hayes was the original Hack, and then Scott McNeil took over, which, and they're both equally as amazing. Scott McNeil's an amazing actor.
Oh, yeah.
He's done billions of different voices.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So it was great to work on on those shows. But yes, I was brought in to do that particular Wes Weasley because I was able to do that voice of that
the kind of dirty sales
kind
of thing.
Like,
how are you?
Yeah, how are you? Wes Weasley's the name. So don't need it, I got it. Don't got it, I'll get it. Yeah, it was basically the from that actor that was that goofy
Phil Silvers, right? Was that
Silvers, yeah,
that's the one,
exactly.
right?
So and it was my impersonation of Phil Silvers. So it was sort of like that, that sort of thing, and he had that sort of and so they kind of mirrored that character after Phil Silvers. So if you see Phil Silvers, he's got these big goofy glasses, and he was a very funny character. But basically what I did is I pushed it farther than Phil Silvers ever did. He was a little less crazy. It was, but as far as that character, it had to be pushed even more.
I think you did in this episode too. You did a little bit of Jimmy. What's his name? Jimmy Stewart. That's right. That's the one. I think I heard a little bit of him too.
Yeah. He sort of had that. It was something like my agent.
I'd like to thank the Academy, my agent, something like that. The end.
I'd like to thank the Academy, my agent. And again, it was just harkening back to all the great actors from the past.
Definitely. I like my James Stewart there. I always forget his name, which I feel bad about, but just his voice and his acting, he's got this really kind of memorable quality about him.
Well, you know what it was too? It wasn't just the voice print. A lot of people think that it's just the voice, and basically there's a cadence to the voice.
Yes.
You're listening to Jimmy Stewart. He had kind of a quality to his voice, you know, and
He really did.
but it was the speech pattern. And if you get one of the other guys like you dirty rats, you know, I'm going to say it's a speech print, and you know, what's this, Edwin, you know, he had sort of that quality, which was unlike, you know, not unlike what we were doing on some of the shows anyway, but
Definitely.
so, you know, a lot of it was a combination of a bunch of guys.
For voice acting, I mean, I'm not a professional by any means, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like there's the voice, as you say, but then also, as you say, there's the accent or the speech print, I think you called it, right?
Yeah,
it's a combination of both, so you can have like one voice in different accents, and it sounds completely different.
I'll give you an example. If I was doing
This little guy I used to do actually on radio, and I called him Herbie, and he was just this little voice, you know, it was just a little voice. But if you give this voice, you keep it exactly in that same spot, and then you put a little bit of a New York accent on it. All of a sudden now you got this other guy who's a bit of a wise guy. The voice print is exactly the same, but it's now if you take that same voice and you give him just a bit of a British accent. Now you've got a different character altogether.
He's quite refined now.
Exactly, but he's still the same character. It's still the same voice print. It's still the same voice. The pitch is the same.
And that's just like anything. If you get him down into here and you give him a New York accent, now you got a guy. You know, he's some you know, he could be a garbage man or whatever. You know, but if you take that same voice and just take the accent off. He's just maybe a little dirty, but he's still the same voice print. It's taking it. It's just like if you took your voice and whatever voice print you do, if you just have your normal voice and you know that, I mean, everyone's got a voice, and you just tweak it just to give it an accent or something else. That's basically you know, that's gonna change the character.
Changes the character a lot.
Yeah, I got a lot of that, a lot of the British accents and things from, because I used to be a huge Monty Python fan.
I mean, who wasn't?
So, yeah, you know, so you get the upper class, you know, you get that sort of, you know, the thing where you're very refined and whatever else. Then you get, good one, no problem, right, so the working class, right, you know, I mean, you know, we can all get in there, you know, muck about. Yeah, it's good, you know. But, so it's the same. You know, it's just the different types of accents that you can put on.
You know, someone's got to go through the series and catalog all the voices that were done. You know, for all the different characters.
It's hard to believe that was that long ago, but
feels like only yesterday, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
This episode has been labeled my favorite episode by a large number of ReBoot fans. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, you know, like I said, it was it's one of my favorite shows too. So one of my favorite episodes. So that's a real compliment to be you know, able to have done a show that stands that test of time. And
you know, there's that kind of like, I don't want to say message, but Mike has that kind of, it almost is a message about consumerism and the presence of TV and the media in our lives. But do you think it kind of comes from kind of a critique or some kind of comment about media, Mike's character and Mike's design?
Oh, good question. I that's a little too deep for my thoughts. But when I first auditioned for that show, that series, as Mike the TV, it was not. Basically, it was if somebody was changing the channels, that's what was going on in my head. Right. Now, whether the writers had any deeper thing, you know, who knows?
So speaking of the voices, you mentioned a lot of actors that you borrow from when doing Mike. Is there anything that you borrow from people that you know when you're doing him, like personal connections that you have in real life?
Are you talking about people that I know personally?
Sure, you know, friends or family. My Uncle Steve is this nut. I'm going to kind of do him in the character.
Yeah, no, I basically, I was hearkening back to the old actors that, and you know, when you look back on some of the old shows, these people had not only an interesting voice print, but an interesting speech pattern. And that's kind of, you know, when you watch that show, it's like the mighty warrior, you know, doing a little Arnold.
Yes.
You know, there was Jimmy Stewart, there was Phil Silvers, there was, I think, a little Paul Lynde may have been thrown in there occasionally. Dudley Do-Right, which, you know, I mean, all those things. We were just having fun.
I really appreciate the Dudley Do-Right, by the way, being a Canadian. Hearing that callback, I really appreciate that. Very nice. Alexandra asks, if you could be in any episode as yourself,
as Michael Donovan?
That's correct, yeah. I mean, I assume as maybe a user, they finally discovered who the user is, and it's Michael Donovan, for example. Which which episode would you personally like to appear in?
Oh, yeah, not a clue. Not a clue. There's been too many episodes over the years. And I will say one thing about ReBoot. The unfortunate part of it was, as we got into season 1 and 2, they were fun. We got into season 3, and I don't know about how other people feel. I started to feel like we were losing the grasp of what we were doing. It started to get too convoluted. I think at one point, it may have been season 4, Bob goes out and he comes back as another Bob.
Right. Yes.
And it got too confusing and Enzo, him and Andrea went out and then
totally
then came back, and it was like, okay, now that he's grown up, Enzo, and this is still the young Enzo, and we used four different kids. Jesse Moss was the first, and he was an amazing actor.
Yeah, the original Enzo.
As a kid, yes, he was outstanding as a, and that's why he was on the show.
Definitely, yeah.
But then we used every season that went by, because I remember I was actually doing a show called Billy the Cat. I was Mr. Hubert, I think, and Jesse Moss was this Billy, and we were recording at I think it was Ocean Studios over on West 2nd in Vancouver, and I remember seeing Jesse. He was sitting there on the couch, and I said, "Hey, you're not going for lunch?" And he goes, "No, my mom forgot to bring me or give me my lunch or whatever." So I says, "What? So you're not going to eat?" And he's going, no, I'm okay. And it's like, come on, I'll buy you a burger. There's a place across the street. So we go across the street, and I'm sitting there, and the phone rings, and it's Josanne Lubbock, who is the L in the BLT Productions.
Right.
And Josanne, she says, "Yeah, Mike," she says, got some bad news. We're going to have to replace Jesse Moss.
Oh,
and
no,
Jesse,
the timing.
And Jesse is sitting across the table from me, chowing down on a burger.
Time to put on that happy face.
Yeah, he's like 13, and his
gosh.
voice was starting to change. It was starting to get husky.
Yes.
That's what they didn't want. So it was like, and I told them, I says, not at the time, but I told them later, I says, why don't we just let Enzo grow up?
Right, which would have been a really cool idea.
Well, yeah, exactly. You let him compile up. He's doing his thing, and then we can bring in a younger kid underneath. That's the little nephew or the who knows what, and they wouldn't go for it.
They wouldn't go for it, which is interesting because they eventually wound up aging Enzo a great deal in season 3.
Well, exactly, and it was sort of like they could have gotten away with it because then it would have followed Jesse as he actually, his voice changed, and it could have gotten into doing some other stuff, but no, they didn't want to do that. So
it would have been really fun. I think I like that idea because he's already compiling up in the episode, and in Talent Tonight, and he grows up again later. I think that would have worked pretty well. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I suppose this must have been after his voice changed, but in the season 1 finale, Identity Crisis Part 2, there's that kind of older, like teenage punk Enzo in the alternate, you know, in the Mega Frame universe. Is that also Jesse Moss doing that kind of aged Enzo voice?
We may have taken his voice and just slightly lowered the pitch.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, although you're talking season 3.
No, this is still in season 1. Like the very end of season 1, Dodd is kind of like hallucinating about this a possible Mega Frame. Like if she gives up and she loses the game, Bong's like, you know, it's going to be bad for everybody. You got to kind of snap out of it. If
Jesse was, I'm thinking we were still using him, so I think we probably just pitched his voice down a little bit.
Yeah.
And he had the acting chops, so he could pull it off.
He definitely did. I know he did come back in season 3 as a different character.
It's been, you know, seriously, it's been a long time since we've recorded any of these shows. So a lot of the stuff is like, I sort of vaguely remember that.
No problem. That's all right. Speaking of voices and stuff, I don't know, this is a while ago too, but in the episode The Tiff, which is actually the first time we see Mike, he talks to Bob about this like mainframe party line, and he wants him to call the mainframe.
Right. That was the thing I was trying to remember earlier. If I'm not mistaken, it was Janice Jode.
Janice Jode.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, and you might want to check the credits because she must have been in that episode, because I remember she does a very sultry kind of
yes.
And I may be wrong. I don't think it was Kathleen Barr.
Yes, I was going to say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it were Kathleen, just because she's so, you know, she can change her voice so well like that. But she's
versatile, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, it was Janice Jode.
I always thought it was an interesting way to introduce the character as well, you know, with that, first of all, that line, and second of all, with like a completely different actor for the voice.
Right. From my memory, and I might be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Janice.
Just a couple more questions before we wrap up here. Rob asks about the script for the episode, and we've all heard that it was originally a very long 52-page script.
Yeah, I have no idea how long the scripts were.
You probably didn't record any of that extra stuff then, that wouldn't have made it in. They probably cut down the script first and then...
The script was... 22 minutes, so however long usually a 22-minute script is not 52 pages.
Right.
So it was a 22-minute script. I mean, a ReBoot was kind of more dialogue intensive, but it was, usually you may get to 35, 55. I don't remember there ever being a script that was that long.
It's quite long, eh? Would have been interesting to see like a 2-parter episode, perhaps.
Yeah, it may. I mean, maybe that was that part 1 and part 2. But if it was that long, we didn't record the whole. We wouldn't record it all.
Sure.
They would have to be cutting. They'd be cutting stuff out.
All right. Well, one last question. This is a question from me, actually. You know, we talked a lot about ReBoot. We talked about some of the other things that you've done as well. In particular, being a big Star Wars fan.
Oh,
I'm interested in your work.
I'll tell you how that came about.
Please.
I was doing Lego Star Wars.
Yes, and as soon as I realized that was you in there, I went out and rented the whole series. I was like, I got to watch all this. I got to see.
Well, Lego Star Wars. It was written by Michael Price, who was the head writer on The Simpsons.
No kidding.
And we did it actually in Vancouver, and then we moved down to LA. So I got to work with Mike Price, and I did the voice of Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Yes, that's what your uncle told you. He didn't hold to your father's ideals, thought he would stay here, not gotten involved.
Right, very cool.
Easy kind of thing. And also Count Dooku, which was, what? They've never worked for me? You know, why won't those rebels work for me? I had that sort of, and that was Christopher Lee, who did Count Dooku, of course.
Yes.
But anyway, we worked together. The fellow who was doing Roger on a series that we went into called Freemaker Adventures. It ran on Disney XD.
Yes.
So it was Matt Matt Wood. That's who it is. Matt Wood also does all the sound design for the movies.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah, he's the guy who does puts all the set. So he said to me, he says, "Listen, you do voice stuff and things," because I was the voice director on the series. And I said, "Yeah." I said, that's. So he says, "Look," he says, "I am recording The Force Awakens.
Ooh.
I'm just finishing up some of the sound and stuff. Why don't you? Are you busy this Thursday or whatever the date was?" And I said, "No, hey, I'm
Not anymore.
I'll come by." And he says, "Yeah, I'd like to have you in and do some stuff on it." So I went over to the where they were doing the sound design and stuff. I had gone over there and I showed up and I was in a room just with his equipment in this room, and he says, "Okay, let's just record some wild stuff." So I did some stormtroopers. I did. If you listen to the movie, I remember hearing at the very end of the movie, because I was one of the PA announcers as Ray is sneaking into the
Yes.
thing. Way in the background, you hear me. But then later in the movie, there's some things at the end where there's some medics.
Yes.
And they're all talking and everything. And I remember being in the movie theater and hearing my voice so present that it made me feel uncomfortable. Over here, he's hurt. It was like that loud, and it was like, holy crap!
Talk about being pulled out of the experience.
Well, to me, it was too loud. But I mean, hey, it's like whatever they want to do, they can do. But it made me feel uncomfortable because it was too present. I thought, because it was supposed to be sort of in the background, but. So anyway, so I did that one, and then I got into, because I had done the Force Awakens, they got me to come back in Rogue One.
Yes.
And it was just, it's source sound. It's all, and we were as a group, as a Foley group. So the Force Awakens was a better experience for me because I was by myself.
Oh yes.
And I was able to punch in different things. With the Rogue One, I was in a group of about 30 or 40 people in a room, and we just were doing a whole bunch of, we would walk through different scenes because they wanted it to be, and everything was mic'd in stereo. So as we walked from right to left and across over to here, over to there, it was picking up different locations of sound. It was interesting to watch because we were doing it to picture. But it wasn't as much fun as The Force Awakens.
That's very cool, though. I suppose then, maybe not with The Force Awakens, but with Rogue One, you might have worked with Sam Witwer or...
Yep. I got that. All those guys were in the studio.
I think they should have gotten you to come on to redo Obi-Wan's voice for the Rebels series. He kind of makes an appearance toward the end of the series. And the guy who did it, I can't remember his name, he did a pretty good job too, but there's just something about your Obi-Wan that I kind of felt, I don't know, this, just my opinion, I think this would have worked really well.
Well, when I did the audition, actually, because I'm a voice director, and I'm also a voice actor, sometimes actors can get a little, how do you put it without sounding, they can get kind of protective of what they're doing.
Sure.
So when if I audition for a role, and if I'm the voice director, sometimes producers go, "Well, he's the voice director. Let's get him."
Right.
Which cuts out everyone else. So when I did the audition for Obi-Wan, I did it anonymously. I said, "Hello, this is Matt." I think I said Matt Sedgwick. I used the name Matt Sedgwick. So I did the audition, and I got the part. And when I told them what I had done, they were kind of like, "Oh, well, you didn't really have to do that, you know. And I was like, no, I wanted it to be fair.
That's very
so
nice.
So I was coming into it with you know, nobody knowing who I was.
Sure.
So I just was an anonymous guy.
Right, just on the talent.
Yeah, well, whatever. And so I remember getting an email back said that it's like, wow, it sounds like you know, Obi-Wan himself
Right.
showed up for the thing. So yeah, so that was a nice compliment. You know, it's like Sir Alec Guinness.
Yes. Is that a tough voice to do?
Well, you know what it is? It's really, when you listen to Alec Guinness, I've thrown a little bit too much, I think a little bit too much Liverpool in there. It's sort of like,
Yes, that's what your uncle told you. He didn't hold to your father's ideals, thought he. It's kind of a nasal, it's almost like a Ringo Starr, you know. It's,
Yes.
if you listen to Alec Guinness, he's not quite as nasal. But for me, it just seemed to, you know, it seemed to come off better.
Yeah, his accent I find is like really hard to kind of peg down, and not really at all like the young Obi-Wan that we see in the prequels, who has like a really kind of like,
Yeah, no,
you know,
that's
the proper
totally.
ridge.
So when we were doing on the Lego Star Wars, Sam Vincent did the voice of the young Obi-Wan, and I did the voice of the older Obi-Wan, which
Yeah.
is the Ghost Obi-Wan or whatever.
Yes.
So, yeah, so
that was very
Yeah.
cool though. As soon as I realized that was you, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's Michael Donovan.
Yeah.
Because I really, I mean, as much as I love Star Wars, personally, I didn't have a lot of interest in the Lego stuff until
Yeah.
I saw your name there, and I thought, oh, maybe
Well,
I'll
you
check
know,
this out after all. And it was pretty good.
It was way too much fun. I got to work with Anthony Daniels.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, he did the voice of C-3PO on our
Yes.
series.
Yes.
And
yes.
he was incredibly difficult to direct.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because you know he's who he is. He's C-3PO. So
Sure,
I mean, it's
yeah.
like,
He knows the
so-
character probably better than anyone else. I imagine.
Exactly. So he said to me, "Listen, Michael." He says, "I'm actually not used to being directed. Usually, I just do what I do, and then I, you know, and then you just pick the best of, you know, whatever else." And so can't remember if it was Yoda Chronicles or Droid Tales, because we did a couple different series. He said to me on one of the episodes where his brain he was like blanked out. It's like he has to reboot himself or whatever.
Right.
So he says, then he comes back and he's all macho.
Yes.
And he's
yes.
and Anthony actually did this. He says, so what I was thinking was a voice kind of like, I'm this, you know, I'm the, you know, C-3PO, and I'm this. And I said, you know what? I said that attitude is perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. But I think your fans want to be able to still hear C-3PO.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And he stopped and he goes, well, I actually don't know how I would do that. And I said, that's why I'm here.
There you go.
To help you get there. And that was his favorite episode. He had so much fun, and he learned after that we were on the same side, that I was there to help him to be the best performer he could be in our series. So after that, we were best friends. So
that's very cool.
Yeah,
that's interesting, you know, because that has probably now influenced how he approaches, because he does everything with Star Wars. You know, he's come back to the Lego stuff, the animated stuff. He's in the new movies too. Right. You know, that's probably informed now his approach to these roles.
Well, he actually told me, he says that the movies, he says they're work. He says, when I do the Lego Star Wars, he says, this is where I can have fun.
Sure.
And because we gave him the license to do it, it's like, yeah, you want to change the line? Let's change the line. If you want to, you want to try something, to do it.
Nice.
let's do it. So he had more fun doing that than he says than the movies.
Definitely.
And I don't know if you ever had seen the we were at the Star Wars convention. I think it was 2015.
Oh, yes.
Did you see the pictures from that? 2015,
that was probably the year that I watched the live feed on YouTube nonstop. I can't remember. Which pictures are you talking about?
Well, because they presented us with statues of ourselves.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I have.
You have a little gold Michael Donovan.
I have the picture. No, it's a like an 18-inch tall statue.
Very cool.
I have it in my studio here. I'll send you the picture.
Sure, yes, please.
And there's me. So I'm on the left. Anthony Daniels is in the middle, and Mike Price is on the end. And there's a statue. I basically had a picture that I sent to the guy who does the marketing for Star Wars Convention, Anaheim 2015. So we showed up for it, and they presented us with these statues at the end, and we were like aghast that's when Anthony Daniels, he says, I don't have anything Star Wars. He says, I don't like any memorabilia. I don't have anything Star Wars.
Really?
He says, but this Lego Star Wars statue of C-3PO is in my dining room. Yeah. So he said, but I'll send you these. I'll send you these pictures.
Yes, please. That'd be great. I feel like I remember at future conventions that they did, Star Wars Celebration, he's hosted some panels, and he's got his gold jacket on and gold pants. I feel like maybe he had that with him at one point, some little gold figure of him. Well,
it could be, but these things are, like I said, they are probably about 10 pounds, and they stand about 18 inches tall. So it's like when you go to Legoland, and they have the statue, like the statues of things.
I see. Yes.
Yeah. So these are big statues.
That's very cool. Yeah, please do send those photos. I'd love to see. I'll put them up on with this recording if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's all that we have for questions here. I just want to say a quick thanks to everyone for sending in a question. That's Raquel and Richard, Dave, Arcade, Jay, Mikey, Alexandra, Miko, Jeff, Bijua, Corbinian, Rob, Value Caps Lock, Rachel, and of course myself. I had a few questions too. Thank you all very much for submitting. Michael, is there anything you want to say here in closing before we wrap up?
No, just that it's it's funny because ReBoot was it wasn't the very first show that I had been on, but it was one of the most memorable shows and the most creative shows that I've been associated with. So, for all of the animators and the people that had a part in making it what it became, I thank you. And to all the many fans out there and people who love the show, I thank you. So, it made doing what we do even more special.
Thank you very much. And, it really is awesome that you've spent time with me today.
My pleasure.